Good evening, everybody. I hope you guys can hear me and see me okay. I'm popping on live because I've got a lot to talk about. So I'm just going to check here really quick and make sure I'm live in the right place that you guys can hear me and see me okay. With the winter storm, who knows what's going on with our internet and all of that fun stuff. So it looks like I'm in the right place. Little positive reinforcement for me. Good job, Louise. So, hey there. I'm so happy to see you guys all here tonight. My name is Louise Belmont. I coach people to train their dogs. That's what I do. But I'm also a certified professional dog trainer with over 10 years of experience. However, I'm also a reactive dog mom. So, if you're looking for somebody with compassion and understanding to really hold your hand and walk with you through this journey of helping you with your own reactive dog, I'm your girl. That's me. So tonight we're going to be going over three of the most common mistakes that I see parents make with their reactive dogs. And I'm also going to talk to you about how we can fix them ASAP. So if you share your life with a dog who barks and lunges, growls, snarls, or snaps at dogs, other people, cars, children, any of those things, then I'm certain that a few of these mistakes we're going to talk about tonight are going to surprise you and get you moving with your dog towards better behavior much more quickly. Okay. So if you guys are ready, we're going to jump right into the first mistake. But I also just want to briefly mention, if you guys have questions, drop them in the comments. I'd love to hear if you guys are out there watching me tonight. I know this is like totally random and impromptu, but when I have stuff to talk about, I just got to get on here and talk about it. So say hey in the comments if you guys are watching. All right, so I've got a couple of slides prepared, so I'm going to add these up here real quick. So the first mistake we're going to talk about tonight is just asking for too much. So before I go over this in great detail, I want to paint a picture for you guys. And trigger warning, it might be a little scary. So I want you to imagine that the very first time you ever learned to drive a car, you climbed into that driver's seat and you drove down one of the major highways. So you got down the town road, you got onto the ramp, and boom, you're on one of those big major highways, multiple lanes. You don't know what the lines mean. And there's other cars coming very quickly in both directions. That's your first time learning to drive. Okay, so now I have a question for you. How would you feel if that was your first driving lesson? If that was the common way that we all learn to drive, I want to know in the comments, how would that make you feel? Okay. Now, I have some ideas. I think we can all assume how that would make us feel, but let's give you guys a couple seconds here to chime in. There's a little bit of a delay on these live videos. So, okay, yeah. So, terrified. I could see that. That would be very scary because vehicles can do a lot of damage and it's just not safe, right? Scared, anxious. Yeah, most of you wouldn't do that. Even as, I learned to drive, I think when I was 14. But it's scary. We can all agree to that. That if that was your first driving lesson, you probably would never trust the instructor ever again. Okay, so now that I've illustrated my point, let's go back to this first mistake, asking for too much. Now, for most reactive dogs, they have big feelings about their triggers, whether that's fear, anxiety, or frustration. Those are big emotions, regardless of what that motivating factor is. And so if you put your dog in a situation where they're triggered, they're around that thing that makes them feel uncomfortable, it's the equivalent of learning to drive on one of the major highways. You're asking for too much way, way, way too soon. And so, one of the easiest ways that we can correct this mistake or avoid it altogether is by building our foundations first. Now, if you've been here for even just a few days, that's all I talk about is foundations, foundations, foundations. And if you haven't signed up for the Distracted Dog mini course, all we work on is foundations. So I definitely recommend you sign up for that mini course and get started because when we're building behavior, we build it at home first before we apply it in a trigger scenario. Okay. So when we're building behavior, we build it at home first before we apply it in a trigger scenario. Okay. I want your dog to be proficient at whatever skill you want them to do at home and in their yard before you try to have them do it in a situation where they're around other dogs. So that also means that your dog probably shouldn't be around their triggers in the beginning, right? So again, if you haven't worked on your management plan, then you need to get our beginner's guide to dog reactivity as well. If none of what I'm saying sounds familiar, just comment below. We'll make sure you get hooked up with those free resources as well. So mistake number one, asking for too much. How do we correct it? You guessed it, work on your foundations at home first. Okay, let's move on to our next mistake. Mistake number two is not reinforcing enough. Okay, so I have another question for you guys. I know you're wide awake and bushy-tailed at 7 o'clock at night. So I want to ask you, would you work really hard at a job that paid really well? Well, I can tell you right now that my first job, I worked at Water Country. And well, we don't need to go down that rabbit hole too much, but you can imagine that making minimum wage, I didn't really work all that hard. I still did the job. I was a great employee. I came back for 3 years. I had enough with the khaki shorts though. But my point is that if we are really appreciated, if our compensation is fair or competitive, and if there's opportunities for growth within a position, you're really going to apply yourself. And it's exactly the same for dogs. So when we're trying to motivate our dogs to learn, when we're trying to teach them new or even complex skills or behaviors, we need to make sure that we are reinforcing them in an appropriate way. Now, some people, when I start working with them, they aren't even bringing treats on their walks with their dogs. And that amazes me because it's such a simple fix. Your dog's not focused on you. Let's add reinforcement. And it's so good. It's almost like a magic wand. Not quite. Not quite. Jake and I haven't developed the magic wand for dog behavior yet. When we do, I promise we'll distribute it to everybody. But treats are a good next step. So we want to make sure that we're reinforcing our dogs in a way that is truly reinforcing. And I say that because reinforcement is something that increases the probability of a behavior occurring in the future. So just because you're handing your dog a piece of food doesn't mean it's reinforcing unless it's reinforcing for your individual dog. Hi, Danielle. Hi, Tracy. I'm so glad you guys are popping on tonight. Yay. Welcome. Tell your dogs I said hi. Okay. So reinforcement is something that your dog really does enjoy. So with Piper, she enjoys all food all the time. It doesn't really matter what I give her. She loves it and deeply appreciates it. For Monzo, he might need a little bit more flavor, a little bit more texture, a little bit more temptation for him to truly be reinforced. Now, when I used to teach puppy classes, when we start to work on come when called, something really interesting would happen where people would call their puppies, they'd come, they'd praise them and tell them they're the best puppy in the entire world, and they're right. But what happens is they'd love up on their dog, and then the dog would show signs of stress and discomfort. And so while the parent thinks they're reinforcing the dog, it's not actually rewarding their behavior. And in fact, it may be doing the opposite. So treats are the easiest way to do this, but I won't lie to you, they're not the only way. And sometimes treats aren't as effective for the individual dog. So we can't just train dogs with a blanket approach. Everything's individual, okay? So I've worked with dogs that love food. I've worked with dogs that adore their kibble. And I've worked with dogs that, food's okay, but you got a tennis ball? Because I'm all about it. So I really want you to spend some time getting to know your dog and seeing what truly lights them up. What is their highest motivating thing, and how can we use that to our advantage when we're trying to build behaviors? Okay. So, one of the things I always like to say is we're training dogs, we're not testing them. Okay. So, we don't want to say, oh, well, let's see if he'll do it without food, or let's see if he'll do it in this situation. We want to slowly build behavior over time. And so, not reinforcing enough and asking for too much often go hand in hand. And what I often see is for some dogs that don't take food, is that you probably haven't built up the foundation skills for your dog in a way that they're reliable enough for them to take food in a trigger scenario. So let me back up and give you an example. Let's say we're trying to teach your dog to pull off the trail and sit when another dog walks by. So you're practicing this at home in your driveway and it's going great. Your dog loves it. It's easy peasy, lemon squeezy, but you've only done it 4 times. They're like, it's great. I like it. And then you go to Northwood Meadows where there's off-leash dogs everywhere. And you try, and if you don't, sorry, if you guys don't know where Northwood Meadows is or what I'm talking about, it's a beautiful state park with lots of beautiful trails and lots of off-leash dogs. It's kind of a little bit of mayhem. And so you try to pull off the trail and your dog's overwhelmed because of the smell of the environment, the wind, the presence of the other dogs that had just been there but weren't visually there, the cars nearby. There's so much going on. You try to pull over, maybe they move off the trail and sit and you offer them food and they're like, "Bleh." Or you put it right here and they're like, I don't know what that is. I don't know what steak is. I've never seen that before in my life. And that's not because your dog isn't food motivated or that pulling off the trail isn't going to work for them, but that the behavior hasn't been built up enough properly for it to be reliable in that situation. Okay. So we really want to go nice and slow. We'll talk about that a little bit more in our next mistake. All right. So mistake number 3 is trying to socialize your dog. Now, if your dog is reactive to dogs or other people, then you know what I mean by socializing. But if your dog is reactive to cars, even, something that's not necessarily something you'd socialize with, just think of it in terms of exposure. Okay. So I want you to know that for dogs that have big feelings or negative emotions about a trigger, exposure is never going to be enough. Okay. Exposing your dog to their triggers alone is not going to change their behavior. And in fact, what can happen is it can do more harm than good. So let me back up again and kind of go into this a little bit more detail. If your dog is reactive to dogs and they bark and lunge when they see another dog, or maybe they just feel uncomfortable and they grumble and kind of turn inward, it might not be this big emotional event. Um, but every time they see a dog, it's not getting better. What can actually happen is that it starts to get worse, that exposure just validates your dog's preconceived feeling that dogs are scary because behavior that's repeated is likely being reinforced. So I won't go down that rabbit hole of management and reinforcement. If you guys want more information, head over to our YouTube page. We go over that in a lot of detail. But what I want you to do instead of socializing your dog is provide them with what I call careful exposure. So careful exposure looks like keeping your dog under their threshold and allowing them to do something that they enjoy. So that could be your dog is 50 feet away from a person and sniffing in the grass for food. It could be that your dog sees that there's other dogs walking on the trail, but they're playing tug with you. Or it could be that you're standing outside of the Lowe's store off to the side of the parking lot where there's people coming and going, and you're periodically treating your dog and capturing good behavior. Those are all perfectly adequate scenarios for carefully exposing your dog to their triggers in a way that will start to change their behavior. But again, exposure on its own is never going to be enough. Okay. So now I have another question for you guys. So I hope you're paying attention. So I want you guys to imagine what it would feel like to know exactly what to do with your dog. Like, could you just imagine with me if you had a clear, laid out plan, like put out in front of you, and it was clear and plain, this is exactly what you should do. Don't you wish life was like that? Again, I won't go down that rabbit hole. Tell me in the comments, how would it feel to know exactly what to do with your dog? So I can tell you right now that when Monza was younger, if someone had told me exactly what to do and I knew it felt right for me, it would have been amazing. I had a lot of people offer a lot of crazy advice. Again, if you want more information, head over to our blog. We talk about that a lot. But so I have a question. If you like tonight's live chat and you want to hear me talk more about reactive dogs, then I've got good news. I have a lot more I want to share with you. So you are officially invited for our free masterclass. So if you want a path of success laid out ahead of you, then this is where you want to come. So this free masterclass is called the Reactive Dog Roadmap, and it's the step-by-step plan to resolve your dog's reactivity. Also, we're going to have a ton of time for Q&A if you have any questions at all. So let me pop the link up for you here. So if you guys are interested, you can head over to redpointydog.com/roadmap. And we actually have 3 different times that you can choose from. So this isn't just a one and done thing. If you guys are interested and you really want to carve out the time to really learn more about how you can help your dog in the most effective way possible, then I want you to head over to redpointydog.com/roadmap and pick one of the 3 times that we're offering it. So it's a live call just like this, but it's going to be inside of Zoom, and we're going to have almost an hour for Q&A. So we're going to get a lot more time together, and it's totally free. So I would love to see you guys there. And again, it's a live class, so you won't want to miss it. All right, you guys. Well, thanks for joining me tonight. I can't wait for the Reactive Dog Roadmap. I have spent a lot of time putting this information together. I polled a lot of you. You guys have all been great, answering all of my questions and providing me with feedback about what you want to learn more about. And I've condensed it all together into this really exciting masterclass. So I will see you guys there. Head over to redpointydog.com/roadmap and save your seat now. Okay, have a great night. Bye for now.